so to speak, if he end up losing. So he's like, oh, I'll tell him if I end up winning the whole thing.
It's like a new reality show, Undercover Gamer.
That's right. So what's really funny too is most students at that age, when in high school, kind of go through this weird thing of either they respect their teachers a lot, or maybe they're not sure of like how cool they actually are. But Wuya is actually doing some pretty cool stuff, being able to travel across seas now and join us, of course, here in Los Angeles. So we'll see if he can keep it up. But right now things are looking pretty bad. He's down 0-2, and even if he is favored for the rest of the matchups, he's still, barely between 20 and 30% to win the match if you just look at the math and probability.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, but we saw Wuya do very well, as I mentioned earlier, against Purple's Highlander Priest deck with his lineup. A lot of players have actually said that they feel like the Zoo Warlock is one of the stronger decks in the field, surprisingly good. In that matchup, and Wuya's version of Tempo Rogue, it has many of the anti-priest technology in it. He has Cobalt Scalebane, he has Karen Bloodhoof, so a lot of ways that he can gain an edge. But here he's just going, all right, I'm gonna go head to head, my priest against yours. Can I cut him on top?
Yeah, cut to the chase. I mean, even if the Warlock and Tempo Rogue were able to nab wins, what is really important is I want to get my priest mirror out of the way, and everyone has seen this matchup unfold over the past couple days and for the past month or two on ladder. A lot of the matchup can be very reductionist, just down to, well, if I have Raza and Anduin before you, I can win. However, we've seen some matchups kind of go back and forth. Some players, even yesterday, had Raza and Anduin before their opponents for 5 to 6 turns, maybe even longer, and still lose. So, it's not always guaranteed, and that's kind of where the nuance of the matchup can really be. How do you actually fight if you're in a deficit or if you have suboptimal hands?
Yeah, the games that this deck plays end up sometimes just feeling like blowouts. One player has everything, the other player does not, and those games, sure, they're not that exciting. But the games where each player is jockeying for position, trying to make the most of their limited resources, trying to play around things like Potion of Madness, for instance.
Right.
Those can be very, very interesting games.
Yeah, like Wuya doesn't have to just trade and collect his card. You can deny his opponent's card too. And here's another thing too. Silence doesn't actually have too many targets on, a relevant minion. There's no like really big death rattles outside of draw cards, and then you want to maybe silence an Acolyte of Pain. So that's something that Wuya's thinking about, denying his opponent any kind of resources.
But there's the Acolyte of Pain, and you see a little bit of pained expression from Wuya, perhaps appropriately.
That's a pretty severe punish.
Right, that is the worst case scenario when you have just fired off your silence to deny your opponent one card, potentially your opponent getting multiple cards. And now, in fact, Onyx is essentially guaranteed to get multiple cards, barring the use of Potion of Madness or some similar effect by Wuya.
Yeah, and still no way to deal with it. So, I mean, Onyx can prioritize the card draw here. So he desires, if he desires.
So if Onyx plays a minion, any minion, Wuya has the possibility of Potion of Madness on the Acolyte, casting the Spirit Lash in his hand to draw one card, and then trading it in to whatever minion that Onyx plays. I guess actually the Blood Mage Thalnos you wouldn't be able to do that with. You'd have to attack it first, then use it, so it works anyway. But regardless, there is the possibility for Wuya to steal these draws from the Acolyte if Onyx plays anything else, and I think that might be what Onyx is thinking right now.
Yeah. Try not to overextend onto the board. He has 8 cards in hand, so if he draws 2, could start playing with danger a little bit. You can get rid of a card, and I guess you could ditch the coin, which is not what you want. The coin is one of the few things that you get in your favor when going second. Otherwise, going first tends to be much better.
Yeah, there's the weirdness with Acolyte of Pain, which is, you can draw a lot of cards off of it, but the possibility of overdrawing, which is Onyx is afraid of. He decides to fire off his pint-sized potion just to prevent the risk that he burns a key card, because the deck is almost incapable of winning without Raza or Anduin.
The memory of Trunks burning Jade Idol when, statistically I'm fine just to burn maybe a card or two, is still fresh in his mind. Maybe I'm reading a little too deep into it, but all it takes is one slip up and then you're off, because this is the elimination match. You lose and you go home.
And Wuya now, he has the Anduin, he has Veiling as well. Still no Raza for the true machine gun powers.
I kind of want to ask you, Gilbert, do you feel like dropping the coin versus pint-sized potion was a better trade-off. What are like the pros and cons of it?
I feel like Pint-Sized Potion primarily in this matchup is just a cheap spell, and Coin is a cheaper spell that generates mana. So I believe that the Coin almost universally has better utility than Pint-Sized Potion in this matchup. Yeah, Ouya decides, all right, well, I'm going to cash in my Potion of Madness and the Spirit Lash to deny you a card and draw one for me, recognizing that he has a couple of the pieces of what he's looking for and does not need to find that much more, wants to keep Amix from finding the same.
That's true. He does have Prophet Valen and Shadow Reaper Anduin. And I mean, Ouya has even told us that this is his favorite class. So, you know, it could be the reason why he's able to make some of these plays, and whether or not they work out is up to his experience as well as adapting situations. This is what he had to say about playing Priest.
The strongest deck here is Highlander Priest, because all 16 players brought it here, so it'll probably see a lot of action. It's a good deck because it can overcome any disadvantage. If the combination lands, you just win, and it feels good.
Yeah, it's a pretty good summary of it. Like 2 sentences or less.
And there's a little bit more nuance than you just win. But there are important things to play around. One card we just saw Ouya fire off. We, in fact, just saw Amix pick up another copy, the Potion of Madness. Because the combination is so powerful in the game, getting your Raza and your Anduin together, so much of these decks are just built around drawing a bunch of cards. And that means often in the mirror match, you're trying to protect your card draw cards from their cards that can steal them, specifically Potion. So now that Amix has seen Potion of Madness from Ouya, he feels safe to play a card draw Death Rattle minion and this Curious Glimmerroot for the first time all game.
Yeah. And, you know, Ouya doesn't actually have any way to activate this Acolyte now that he uses Spirit Lash, and playing it onto the board is makes it vulnerable to a few things. So that's usually where the Wild Pyromancer can kick in, but it doesn't look like Ouya has a way to guarantee this Acolyte draw, which is, while a nice draw in theory to have, can be quite dangerous, because we know Amix has the double Potion of Madness right now. Just a pass.
Ooh, Raza.
Starting to ramp up a little bit.
Each player with a couple of pieces. And Amix also has Lyra plus Radiant Elemental. Lyra plus Radiant Elemental often means that if you do find your Anduin, sometimes you can just do so much damage because you find so many cheap spells. The Potion of Madness in his hand, as long as there's a target from Ouya, can represent damage if he does find Anduin. Obviously is a big part of the reason that Ouya feels like he needs to keep that Acolyte of Pain in his hand as well. Ouya keeps drawing cards that are vulnerable to those potions, and he has not seen Potion from Amix. And ultimately, perhaps Ouya will see a Potion from Amix, and then feel safe to play another minion that could potentially be vulnerable to Potion, and then ultimately get the bad news that there is a second Potion thanks to the Curious Glimmerroot.
Yeah, and a lot of these decisions that are, or these plays being made right now, are a consequence of, oh my goodness, the Cabal Shadow Priest coming into hand there. But it's a consequence of what Ouya decided to do early. Because he didn't want his opponent to draw anymore, he Potion Madness and uses Spirit Lash, which allows him to draw the Loot Hoarder, but also makes his, situation where he can't use the Spirit Lash efficiently. And now look at the state of the board here. Ouya has to Shadow Reaper Anduin, but Amix still has a board presence. And if Amix draws Shadow Reaper Anduin, Ouya is going to be in deep trouble.
Well, Amix does have, frankly, a relatively powerful board here. He does also have a Kazakus he can use to dig for some additional resources. Generally in this matchup, Kazakus is looking for card draw more than anything, simply because you are working very hard to try to piece together the specific combinations. There's draw 2 cards. I imagine that'll be what he takes.
Yeah, well, your opponent has no minions on board, so the secondary effect is not really important. Amix kind of having a little too many cards to spend, or to hold here. Might have to spend some of them. And all of them can be valuable in their own way. I guess Silence is the least useful one for what you see right now. considering that another problem too is that you have Lyra and Radiant Elemental, so you're gonna refill your hand really quickly.
Let's go ahead and silence his own minion. Shut up, Kazakus.
Yeah.
Too loud.
We are still looking for a way to get some card draw. Raza the Chain!
Raza. And one interesting thing about the Raza here, not only is it obviously extremely powerful in combination with the Anduin, but it unlocks the Loot Hoarder and Acolytes to allow him to cycle through them.
Yeah, now, I mean, the game, we actually have a game now. Before, Onyx was kind of, running away with it with all the card draw and resources. But now Wuya can actually piece together a push here with Prophet Valen in hand.
I mean, Valen plus Mind Blast alone is 16 damage next turn. And Onyx has to be afraid of a lot of possible outcomes here. He yet doesn't know that Ouya is sitting with a bunch of relatively expensive cards in his hand.
And I guess based off the way he's playing this, Onyx seems to have picked the polymorph option from the potion. Looks like he has. Although
he could have chosen to attack into the 2/3 first with his 2/6 to ensure that the Galactic Crawler dies.
Oh wait, but by having the Galactic Crawler stick, unless his opponent trades into it, he guarantees a Potion of Madness target.
Sure, that's true. Depending on what he's looking for, yeah.
I mean, did think about it for a little bit of time, so I think he's weighing, like, what's the value of, like, giving myself a target? Because that might give, in this case, he did draw Prophet Valen, so that might be extra burst. He's able to pick up Shadow Reaper Anduin as well, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Also worthy of note, because you pick Prophet Valen, he can just go Prophet Valen, Mind Blast, Holy Spike for 14. So that extra 2 damage actually matters to the face.
I think we may just be looking to clear things off here with the Dragonfire plus Raider Healing Potion, get himself back up out of immediate burst range.
Yeah, Healing Potions used on both sides, so kind of a reset. Halftime, if you will. And Onyx's Prophet Valen, it wasn't like the big all-in here by any means. But definitely his plan has been thwarted. Still looking for Shadow Reaper Anduin, still staying very much competitive in this game.
It's an interesting spot because oftentimes in some matchups you just have Lyra Radiant a bunch of cheap spells. You're like, all right, I wanna go in and get some value here. It's not really what this matchup is about, though. If you generate a bunch of expensive spells, you don't have time to play them. You don't have time to try and get value out of them because at this stage, when your opponent is already Anduin, it's just about burning them out.
Oh, man. You're right, it's all about burning them out, but without Anduin showing up, Onyx has no way to guarantee that he can set up a 2-turn lethal here with just Prophet Valen and the normal Priest hero power. And Wuya's still kind of stuck on this, I have this Acolyte Loot Hoarder stranded, by the way.
And that's been a problem for him for a while. Those have just been sitting in his hand. He has not been able to play them. Shadow or Death, kind of a dead draw here.
Yeah. I mean, he can play Acolyte and start pinging his Acolyte, which seems to be a reasonable action at this point.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and try to cycle through these, prevent his opponent from potentially having Potion. He has already seen the Potion of Madness from his opponent. He doesn't know he has another one. But the Circle of Healing is a big draw because that's 4 damage for free in the Prophet Valen combo turn.
Well, he can Loot Hoarder ping one of his other card draw sources again, just to kind of get it out of the hand and cycle through, because it doesn't seem like he has the enough damage right now, and you want to look for another way for Prophet Valen to squeeze in damage for 1 mana right now.
Right. Primarily, Wuya is searching for cards he can play in the same turn as Velen, whether that's 1-cost spells, whether that's Radiant Elemental. He can pair that with the Mind Blast cheaply.
The shadows grow short.
Okay. Oh, he's not playing on the Potion of Madness, like you said.
Because he's already seen Potion of Madness. The fact that Potion of Madness came off of a Glimmer Root, and I believe Onyx concealed which one by playing the one specifically that came off Glimmer in the first place, that's Anduin for Onyx.
Oh my. So he's got Heal, Shadow Reaper Anduin, and then Hero Power, Potion of Madness, Hero Power. Does he set up for lethal that way next turn? You can push 3. So hypothetically, just goes face with everything else. You could do 4 more. So yeah, Prophet Valen would set up a or the Shadow Reaper Anduin does set up a lethal for next turn, unless Ouya can thwart it. And that was the exact draw that Onyx needed to close out this series. Keep in mind, we've been going to Game 5 almost every series in this tournament. A lot of players have kind of mapped out the edges. We've only seen 1 sweep so far. That also happened in Group A.
And here Onyx has so much burst damage in his hand because he does have the Radiant Elemental, the Holy Smite, the Mind Blast. He can play all of that alongside Prophet Velen next turn.
Okay, looks like he's prioritizing removing the Priest of Feast. Makes sense because he wants to set up for the damage. Put his opponent down to 20. Can Ouya hold off? Is this enough? It's not.
Yeah, this is exact lethal from Ouya here. He's
Wow.
able to get down precisely exact damage before Onyx come back and burst him massively next turn.
Just enough to get there.
Imagine if Onyx had just killed that Acolyte.
You're right.
He allowed the Acolyte to live.
The
and
one
that was
damage
the
mattered.
one damage attacking Acolyte to the face that he needed to exactly win the game before he was going to get blown up.